Hello, parents, and welcome to the remote math curriculum. My name is Eric Simoncelli, and I will be your son or daughter's math teacher for this semester. And as you can see, I have my email address listed there for you, as well as my phone. And obviously, if you need to contact me, please do so in either manner. So let's get started. So as a kind of set of reminders to kick things off, I am going to ask that you monitor your child's learning if and when you are available. Observe how your child follows the OneNote tips for success when working, and I'll go through on OneNote what that entails. Note that we are upholding most expectations alongside the in-person student peers each day. And then last reminder, remember that this semester will likely be a work in progress for everyone. Things will change likely over the course of time. A little bit about me. I'm a graduate from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I have a master's degree in educational leadership. I have one in educational technology as well. And I've been a Geneva High School math teacher, coach, and mentor now for 19 years. And I absolutely love what I do in this community. Why do I teach? Well, I love to empower others. Yes, I do teach mathematics, but really that's the conduit. I teach students mathematics is how I truly feel about that. I love teaching, learning, and my family. And as you can see, I have a beautiful family. My wife, Tanis, is an educator as well in St. Charles. We work tirelessly together to improve upon our professional and our personal lives together. My son, Augustino, he is 7 and he's in second grade. My daughter, Coralina, she is 5 and she's in kindergarten. And my daughter, Taziana, is 3 and she's in preschool. My family means the world to me, and everything that I do every day, I believe translates to the community that I work for and with. One thing that I wanted to kind of speak to on behalf of my teaching philosophy, not to go too in depth on this, but I do firmly believe, and I have a little metaphor here with kind of combining the nature and nurture aspects of how I think students learn best and how I feel my teaching then in turn is inspired by that. I do feel like frankly a path, and I'll stick to kind of the main theme here, a path that is rooted in the nurture and teaching alongside our growing school culture. Speaking of which, we are growing in so many different ways, obviously now. It will lead people into a stronger educational experience. And I firmly believe that this is not just something that educators kind of set up for kids, and to the extent where we are the end all be all. I do firmly believe that parents, community members, and obviously the students themselves set the path, and we just kind of help them along that path. I love math and I love supporting students grow as lifelong mathematicians. I do have a YouTube channel that the students are already familiar with. If you have not yet maybe checked that out, I encourage that you take a look at that. It is very worthwhile, I think, as a parent, to be able to see exactly kind of how the lessons are progressing directly from me. But also, as you'll find, there's some other resources and tools that I use directly, but I also recommend that the kids kind of take a look at off to the side on their own. I do have a Twitter account. I do like to use that once in a while. I will be using it probably more as we continue here. Not quite yet. I think it's pretty early on, but it's another resource tool for kids to kind of get a more in-depth perspective on who I am and how I kind of look at the mathematical world. We are going to be using Microsoft tools primarily. Please remind your child to access their math course content each day, checking all Microsoft tools. The order of operations, so to speak, if you don't already know, your child should know very well. Mondays, Wednesdays, and every other Friday, as the only remote math teacher, the students need to meet first on the Microsoft Teams platform. That is our synchronous or live class for the full period. So if your son or daughter is required to be in math first period, for example, they need to be there on time for a synchronous live lesson Mondays, Wednesdays, and every other Friday. Then, as I'm teaching, they also need to be very familiar with OneNote and being able to kind of have dual access to both during the course of the lesson. On Tuesdays, Thursdays, and the opposite or remaining Fridays, the students need to log into OneNote first. They are not live with me. They are asynchronously learning. And there they're doing an independent study of which they need to be working on their math for the full period. I have told the students already on those non-live days, they cannot put the math off to a different class period. And the reason is, before they know it, the work will pile up and they won't necessarily even know when they should be doing things. So when they're not live with me, they still need to report technically again on their computer and get the work done. Microsoft Teams optional office hours. This is something that I also offer on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and those remaining Fridays. If a student has questions from the prior day, whether it's a lesson or homework that I've prepared, whether it was a live lesson or a screencasted lesson via YouTube, students have the option to come into office hours. If they email me in advance to tell me they're coming in, I'm available during office hours, and we use Microsoft Teams again for that. These are the three major platforms. Again, this is what it looks like. I do highly recommend that the student has, obviously, well, their device, of course, to access Outlook, Teams, and OneNote, but they also download the app on their phones. The Outlook, Teams, and OneNote apps are very great resource tools that the students need to be familiar with. Attendance. The following is the teacher progression that should be followed should student engagement be an issue. And as we progress throughout the course of this semester, I'm going to have to be more and more kind of strict when it comes to attendance. Thus far, we're all still getting acclimated and accustomed to how just to use the tools, let alone know where to go, so to speak. But if this becomes an issue, the teacher should contact the student and parent/guardian to discuss the lack of adequate engagement. The teacher should contact the counselor if the first step did not produce the desired result. And the teacher should contact the student's dean, who will work with the counselor, the student, and the student's parent/guardian to improve student engagement. So far, this really hasn't been much of an issue, although I do know that students are having some difficulties with the technology, so I have some leniency on that. But once they figure out exactly where they're supposed to be and when to be there, I'm going to be pretty strict about them showing up on time during their synchronous class period days. Off to the left, I've noted daily attendance during the planned synchronous math period is mandatory, and a classwork participation grade will be recorded and documented. So I do need to follow the proper protocol if, in fact, a student is not participating or not in attendance. I have an example. I kind of joked with my students on the first couple days of school. I showed them my cell phone and I showed them all of my alarms. All of these alarms are quite literally, outside of me getting up at 6:30, these are quite literally all of the kind of period start times. Well, technically 5 minutes before each period begins, and then the period ending time. So this, for example, is the 5-minute pre-first period time alarm that I have set for every weekday. And then Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, for example, you can see here I've set a time alarm for 8:30. The bell technically rings at 7:40, and then it ends again, or rings again, or my alarm goes off, right, at 8:30. So that is an alarm for me to know when to begin and end. And I strongly urge that the students do this as well on their phones, because I would hate to have them think it's a Tuesday and it's really a Monday, and they just didn't set their alarm, or maybe they didn't have one even set in the first place. So I strongly urge that they do that so they don't miss class on the required live attendance days. Asynchronous times, those are obviously a separate concern. I still want students to do their math, but that really is up to them and hopefully the parents to kind of keep an eye on their asynchronous time when we're not live. Expectations, math course expectations are described in the syllabus, including the general information via OneNote, which I will break down separately. Please support your child in order to adhere to the course expectations via the syllabus, but also in order to adhere to the school expectations. There are a litany of guidelines that the school handbook provides. The relevant GHS student handbook guidelines must be followed, in other words, applicable to a remote setting. Some are more obvious than others as far as relevancy. But more specifically, relevant one-to-one device guidelines must be followed. I pulled this off to the right here. I pulled this from the student handbook, and it just speaks to the one-to-one device digital citizenship responsibilities and guidelines. So please pay attention to this. This speaks to, school issue devices should be used for educational purposes only, adhering to the student handbook. While working in a digital and collaborative environment, students should always conduct themselves as good digital citizens, respecting themselves, protecting themselves, respecting others, protecting others, respecting intellectual property, and protecting it. I will be very, very strict if a student does not adhere to these policies, because with us obviously being remote, the device is crucial in our learning, and if we disrespect each other or others, ourselves or others for that matter, it's going to be one of those things we have to keep a close eye on. We have to pay attention to this. Additional notes, I do want you all as parents to reference the OneNote general information calendar sections alongside your child as they're doing things each day. If you can pop in and see what they're doing. If this is not as easy to do, I strongly recommend that you request your child's login information. Microsoft has now kind of made it more difficult for parents to get access without a school Microsoft account. So obviously, because that's not going to happen, I do urge that you ask your child for their login info so you can actually follow along with them, maybe not even necessarily sitting next to them. Please know that I will continue to remain flexible and hope we continue to be forthright in our endeavors together. I know I'm repeating some things from the email, but I want to make this clear. If there are any questions or concerns during this remote learning time, I will address them and always err on the side of prioritizing student health and wellness first, as well as the health and wellness of your family, as it may certainly impact how students learn. Off to the right there's the regular schedule. First period, again, I do have students in first period. I also have students in second period. I have a 4-5 class as well. I have a 7-8 class as well combined. And then lastly, I have a 10th period class. So I teach 5 different math classes, and during those particular times. So if you have a question, if you have a concern, during those times on Mondays, Wednesdays, and every other Friday, I'm teaching the students live, but technically you can email me anytime, and the students, again, understand the schedule, or at least they're getting used to the schedule. This is the viewing window in OneNote, of which you can see for Algebra 2, Period 2. I have the general information section open, and from there, the syllabus page open, as you can see. And down below, I urge you to look at all of these pages with your son or daughter at a later time. It does detail more specifically things like um, grading guidelines, as well as tips for success. Other things that are important for the class certainly are embedded in there that you can take a look at. So let's take a look at the syllabus. The syllabus does detail, kind of typically speaking here, you've got my contact information. I have a kind of a generic tentative monthly calendar broke down for the students. There's a makeup, work, and absences description. On the next page, you can see there I've got my materials list. So the school device, pencils, spiral notebooks, the TI-83 or 84 plus, headphones, a stylus, which is optional. I do have a link here for you to take a look at if you do decide to get a stylus. But right now, I told the students use a pencil and paper for most everything you do. The grading policy, I do break things down accordingly. The tests are 50%, quizzes/homework quizzes are 30%, and the final is 20%. Homework does also count, so to speak, as classwork. They're already at home, so why not call it just classwork? So tests and quizzes, the students need to expect to take 1 to 3 quizzes and 1 chapter test still per chapter. They need to show all of their work as usual. And then they need to be aware of the flexibility that we all need to kind of observe as we go through this process together. I do have a calendar that I wanted to highlight with you as well. The students will access the calendar, frankly, one of the first things they do every single day, if they're synchronous or asynchronous. So for example, this past Friday, the students had section 1.4 to take a look at. This link takes them to the first page of that. This link will take them to the screencasted lesson or the live lesson if one exists for that. And then the homework link is here as well. So please take a look at OneNote with your child and discuss all the details so that you can best serve them. Thank you.